Okay, class. Firstly, I'd like to apologize since I cannot attend this week's lecture. So I will provide you with a video instead that you could watch during the lecture session. And please stand by until the class video, since in the end of the video you will get the homework for this week's lecture. Now, this week we are going to learn about the interference management and the frequency. Now, last week we have already learned about fading, right? The importance of fading, which means that if we are talking about fading, we are also talking about loss propagation. Especially if we are talking about loss propagation, it is heavily affected by the large-scale fading. There is another type of fading, for example, small-scale fading. However, we are not going to talk about it yet. We are still talking about this loss propagation caused by the large-scale fading. Last week, we also have already learned about several types of the propagation model, which is the first one, the most basic one. The fundamental one is what we call as one-ray model. Or what we call as the free space loss model, usually called as free space loss. And also, we also have already learned about the more advanced propagation model, which involve the reflected wave. Usually, we call it as two-ray model, right? Or usually called as plain earth propagation model. Besides of these two, we also have already learned about other propagation model as well. For example, Okumura-Hata, and then also Wolfis-Ikegami, and also COS231. But however, and in this week, we are only going to focus on these two models. Now, from the last week material, the last 2 week material, we have already learned about the free space loss, right? The only difference between free space loss or one-ray model compared to the two-ray model is that the existence of the reflected wave. While the first model or the free space loss model, the loss is affected only by the value of the frequency and also the distance between the transmitter and the receiver. On the other hand, if we are talking about two-ray model, two-ray model is only affected by the value of the distance between Tx and Rx, and also the value of the height between the transmitter or the receiver. Either H1 is the height of the transmitter or receiver, it's up to you. Actually, it's not much different. However, the loss itself is not affected by the frequency. It is affected by the distance and also the height of the transmitter and the receiver. And from the last week material also, we have already learned about the path loss exponent. The value of the path loss exponent is the power of this nominator or the power of D, usually known as gamma or beta. And the value of the path loss exponent usually depending on the environment itself, whether it is urban suburban or rural area, which means that the value of the path loss exponent will be varying between 2 or 5, depending on the environment. While the lowest value 2 is for the environment that has a less problem, for example, rural, and the highest value of the path loss exponent comes from the very dense area, for example, urban area or metro area, for example. It's actually the same. Now that we have already learned about this path loss exponent, we could see that the value of the loss itself in the wireless communication system will be heavily affected by the distance of its transmitter and receiver, right? However, is that it? No, it's not just it. Why? Because sometimes there is also another base station over here. For example, if the user A over here is communicating with the tower A, and we also have another tower B over here that has the same frequency, this one is using frequency 1, then B will become an interference between communication tower A to the user A. If it using the same frequency, for example, frequency 1, 2. That's why another aspect that is very important for the wireless communication system is how could we manage the frequency. So that's what we are going to learn about this week. We are going to learn how could we manage the frequency in order for us to build the optimum wireless communication system regarding to the capacity and also for the coverage. Nah, one of the most used method or the popular method is what we call as the frequency reuse in order to manage the frequency. Frequency reuse is, as the name implies, it is reusing the same frequency within different area. Within different area outside of its interference area. So usually in cellular communication, we model this coverage area as a cell, right? Hexagonal cell, to be more precise. Now, usually, the frequency between this adjacent tower will not have same frequency. So between the frequency 1, frequency 2, and frequency 3, sorry, between tower A, tower B, and tower C, they will have different frequency each. For example, if A is using frequency 1, B is using frequency 2, and C is using frequency 3. A group of tower that has different frequency is what we call as cluster. So cluster is a group of a tower, a group of many tower that has different frequency or has no frequency within that group, has no same frequency within that group. Which means that in order for us to use this frequency reuse method, we are going to use multiple cluster. So if we group one cluster over here consists of 3 cells, then there is also another group over here consists of another 3 cells. And this 3 cell configuration will also have the same frequency. For example, we'll like this. So it will be adjacent to each other. So the cell over here will have frequency F3. And the cell over here will have frequency F1, right? Wait, maybe not here, maybe inside the circle. Okay. If we see in this picture, we could see that from the adjacent cluster, there is no interference between adjacent cell. Since cell that has the same frequency will be separated by other cell. For example, if we look in this picture, we could see that the tower and the first cell that has frequency 2 and the tower on the second cluster that has frequency 2, that has the same frequency from the first cluster, is separated by the cell over here. Sorry. Separated by the cell F3. That's what we call as outside of its interference area, since there will be no same frequency adjacent to each other. Why do we have to put like that? Why don't we put the same frequency adjacent to each other? Now, the problem if we put the same frequency adjacent to each other is, if, for example, we put two cells that has the same frequency, like this one is frequency 1, this one is frequency 1. If we have a user in the middle of the boundary between this cell, the power of the communicating will have the same power with the interference itself. For example, if this is cell A and this is cell B, if the user is communicating to cell A, since the distance is the same between cell A tower to the user and cell B tower to the user, the value of the power will be comparable to the power of interference, which means the value of C to I will be equal to 1, since the power of C will be equal to the power of the interference. That will be very problematic. That's why, in order to avoid that, we have to put the tower that has the same frequency with this tower adjacent, not adjacent to each other or separated by other cell. That way, if the user exists on the boundary of the cell itself, even though it's still here, that is very far from the initial tower. However, the distance from the second tower that has the same frequency will be much higher, right? Which means that if the distance over here is equal to D, then the distance between the second tower to the user will be equal to, this one is D, this one is D, and this one is D, right? Will be equal to 3 times D, right? Which means that the interference power will be less, more or less, will be lesser compared to the carrier power from this initial tower. That's the method of the frequency reuse. Now we know that frequency reuse could be modeled using what we call as C2I, or carrier to interference, right? Carrier is the power between the initial tower to the mobile station. This is the power of the carrier. While the interference is the unwanted power. Unwanted power is the power comes from the second base station that has the same frequency. Since the distance between the initial power and the second power is shorter, then the power of the carrier will be much larger compared to the interference. Let's say this one is distant 1 and this one is distant 2, right? Since the distant one, since D1 is larger than D2, which means that the carrier will be larger than the interference. That will be very favorable if we are talking about wireless communication system. Even though we are access on the boundary of the area over here. However, if the user is moving to this cell, to the next adjacent cell, then there will be a process called as handover. So if the user move from the F2 to F3 over here, the process is different. It's called as handover. However, the power C2I at the frequency 3 will be the same, since the distance of the user over here to the new tower compared to the interference power from the F3 over here will be much higher, right, compared to the interference power. That's why in order to design the wireless communication system, the power of C2I has to be larger or at least the same compared to the C2I minimum, or what we call as the C2I threshold. Okay. Now, usually we are using two-ray propagation model. By using two-ray model, we could see that if the power of the C is equal to the power divided by the distance, since it's the power divided by loss, right? And since the loss is monotone to the power, then we could note that the power of the carrier will be equal to the power transmitted divided by the distance. And also the same for the interference. Interference will be affected by the power divided by the distance, right? Now, we know that we have already talked about cluster, right? Cluster is the same, cluster is a group of tower that has no same frequency, right? That's what we call as cluster. So if we see in this picture, there is around 7 tower that has different frequency. We could write it K equal to 7. Now, if we see in this picture that we could see that there is interference power, right, from here, right? So if this C2 over here is the observed cell, then the another C2 over here that has the same frequency will become an interference tower, since it's used the same frequency, F2. This one F2, this one F2, this one F2, right? Now, if we draw a circle of a group of the interference like this, that's what we call as the first chain of the interference, or the first tier of the interference. Now, the simpler model is using the cluster equal to 3. If we are using if we are using K equal to 3, we could see that there will consist of 6 interference tower to the main tower. Which means that if the user is communicating to the initial base station over here, there will also another 6 tower interfering to that communication. So the interference is not only coming from one tower. However, it's also coming from another tower that is close to this cell. From the adjacent cluster. And the total of the interference will be equal to, since we have already modeled the interference is equal to power divided by loss, so the total of the interference itself will be equal to, let's say this one is a cell 0, this one is cell 1, this one is cell 3, cell 2, this one is cell 3, cell 4, cell 5, cell 6, right? This one is cell. So the total power will be equal, the total interference will be equal to the power of 1 divided by the loss 1 plus power of 2 divided by the loss 2 plus power of 3 divided by loss 3 and so on plus power of 6 divided by the loss 6, right? So the interference will be 6 times from the first tower up to the 6th tower, right? Now, however, the value of the interference itself is still very low. Why? Because the distance of the user is within this cell area, which means the power of the user to the initial tower will be much larger compared to the P1 to P6. Besides, the value of the loss itself is also less, right? Compared to the loss of L1 up to the L6, right? L6. Why that happened? Since the distance of the communication from the user to the initial tower will be less compared to the distance of another tower to the user, right? So to make it simpler, we could use this formula. So the power of C2I will be equal to the power divided by loss of the first tower or the initial tower divided by the total of power divided by the loss itself. That's what we call as the carrier to the interference. And while the value of N itself over here is the total of interferencing power. Which means that if we are using this picture, the value of the N will be equal to 6. Since the interfering the interfering tower will be 6, right? 6 number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Compared to the initial tower. Communication between base station to the mobile station or the downlink is also the same. Since it's communication of the downlink, the previous line is the communication of the uplink. Let's get this one is downlink. No. It will be not understand. But actually, what I mean is the concept of the interference is also happen between uplink and downlink. So if we are talking about uplink, the interference comes from other user to the initial tower. However, if we are talking about downlink, the interference happen from the another tower to the compared to the initial tower. So that's the only difference between uplink and downlink. Since the source of the interference in uplink communication will comes from another user on the same channel. Comes from another user on the same channel. However, if we are talking about the downlink communication, the interference comes from another tower compared to the initial tower. Actually, it's the same concept. However, it depends on the source of the interference itself between the downlink and the uplink. Okay. We have already know that the power of the C2I will be equal to the power ratio the ratio between power and loss in initial tower divided by the ratio of total of the interferencing power, right? So if we are using two-ray model, we could put all of this information, the P divided by L, while the value of the L itself, the value of the loss is equal to the two-ray model, or R power of 2 divided by H transmitter times H receiver power 2. And the power of the interference, the loss of the interference is also the total of the loss from the two-ray model, that we could model this simpler 1 divided by H1n times H2n equal to little k. Let's say this one is little k. It's just a constanta of the height of the tower. Now, we could see that the power of the carrier to noise interference will be equal to R power minus 4. So we could eliminate this, right? The value of K will be eliminated since the height of the tower will be the same between the interferencing tower and the initial tower. So since the K is eliminated, the carrier to interference equation could be made simpler by using this equation. R power minus 4 divided by the total of the distance power minus 4. Okay. Now, we are going to learn later that the value of D per R will be equal to root of 3 times K. So the carrier to interference level will be equal to 9 times K quadrat per M. Okay. So in order to make it simpler, we could say that the value of the carrier to interference will be equal to 9K quadrat per M. Okay. Now, the question is, why the value of D per R equal to root 3 times K? Why? Now, it's happened because the cell is hexagonal. We are going to learn about this later, but I think we are going to continue first. Now, so if we are talking about a single cell that has no sectorization at all, the value of the carrier to interference value will be equal to 9K quadrat per N, right? 9K quadrat per N. However, if we are talking about a sectoral antenna, by using sectoral concept, we could put that within one cell will be divided into 3 sectors, which means this 3 sectors will be also divided into 3 frequencies, right? F1, F2, and F3. This one is also divided into F1, F2, and F3, and also divided into F1, F2, and F3. It will be like this. So it's a small cluster after all. Now, using what we call as a 3-sectoral, with the antenna sector equal to 120 degree, now, we could make the interference lesser, or the co-channel interference could be suppressed up to 1/3 of its value. So using the sectoral concept, we could suppress the value of the co-channel interference, or the value of the interference. So which means that if we are talking about the value of the carrier to interference equal to 1 per n divide 1 per n times d per r power 4, 1 per n times d per r power 4, while n is the value of the interferencing tower, I don't know, interferencing, let's say interference tower. Interference tower. N is the number of the interference power. So we could suppress that the value of the interference up to 1/3 of its initial value, which means that if we are having this C2I equal to 1 per 6 d per r power of 4 for the omnidirectional antenna, or using no sectorization, by using trisectoral antenna or using trisector within one cell, we could suppress the value of the interference up to 1/3 of its value, which means that the power of the C2I will be equal to 3 times. Since the interference is suppressed up to 1/3, then the carrier to interference value will be 3 times compared to the no sectoral, right? However, if we are using sectoral area, we could improve the value of the co-channel interference up to 6 times. However, the problem of using sectoral antenna is we are going to use a heavy signaling between the first sector antenna and the other sector antenna. I mean the first sector of the cell and the other sector of the cell. It will have a very hard signaling. Okay. Now we are going to learn about the coordinate system. The coordinate system. So if we are talking about coordinate system, that we know that the model of the cell is using this hexagonal, right? So one cell is equal to one hexagonal. Now, using this equation, we could find the value of K equal to root of I quadrat plus I times J plus J quadrat. Okay, so this is not D, but this equal to K. Okay, this is equal to K. Okay, this is equal to K. And the value of D per R is equal to root of 3 times K. So previously, we have already discussed about the cluster. Cluster are usually called as the reuse factor. Reuse factor is a group of cells that each of its cell will have one set of frequency that is different from the other cell within the same cluster. So within that same cluster, we'll have no different, within one same group, there is no same frequency between each cell. The size of the cluster will be called as the reuse factor, or symbolized by K. Or the K will be equal to the number of the cell within one cluster. The smaller of the value of K, the frequency could be made more efficient, or the capacity will be much larger. Okay. For example, if we are talking about K equal to 3, it means that within one cluster, there will be 3 cells. Or within, if we are talking about K equal to 4, then within one cluster will be having 4 cells. Okay. Now, so we could see that the draw over here that if we are talking about k equal to 1, then there will be around 3 cluster over here that has within one cluster, it has 3 cells each. And on the picture on the right, we could see that within one cluster, there will be 4 cells each. Okay, this is k equal to 4. Now, what's the value? What is ing? This ing actually. Ing is the number of the cell. So if we are talking a number of I cell horizontally and j cell vertically, we could see that the number of the cluster will be equal to I quadrat plus j quadrat plus ej. Such the value of the cluster. So if we are talking about the number of I vertically is only 1 and the number of the number of cell horizontally is only 1 and the number of cell vertically is only 1, so then the value of k will be equal to 3. If we have a value of I equal to 1 and the value of j equal to 2, using this equation, we could find the number of the cluster equal to 7. Okay. For I equal to 1 and j equal to 1, the value of cluster will be equal to 3. Now, if we see in this picture, the source of the interference maximum will be equal to 6. There will be the first interference over here, to the adjacent cell over here, to the initial cell, and also another cell over here. Another cell over here will also cause interference, and another cell over here, another cell over here, and another cell over here. There will be around 6 cells, right? Six interfering towers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we see within this 6 cluster, there is no adjacent tower from each other. However, this 6 is also still producing the interference to the initial tower. And go back to this picture, we could see the value of Q over here. Q is what we call as interference ratio. Interference ratio means that the higher of the value of Q, the value of the interference will be much lower. So if we are talking about the higher value of Q, the number of K will also be higher, which means that the interference ratio will, the interference comes from another tower will be much lesser. So the relationship between Q and the interference power is in contrast between each other, the opposite of each other. Okay. For example, if we are talking about, for this example, the value of E equal to 0, let's say this one, there is no no cell that has the same value, right? No cell that has the same position. Now, E equal to 0 and J equal to 1, J equal to 2. So we could calculate the value of K will be equal to 4. Okay. Now, Using the same concept, we could find the value of Q equal to root of 3K, then it will be equal to 3.46. Now, compared to the higher value of cluster, for example, for cluster 7, the value of the K will be much larger, which means that the value of the interference will be lower. So it means that the value between Q and the value between I will be the opposite of each other. Since the distance of the cell to the interferencing cell will be much farther compared to the lower order of cluster. Okay. Another example, if we are using cluster equal to 12, if we are using cluster equal to 12, then the value of the Q will be equal to root of 3 times 12, or root of 36, or equal to 6. Okay, so which means that the value of the interference comes from Q K equal to 12 will be less compared to the interference of K equal to 7, or will be less than interference from K equal to 4. This is the importance of the Q value. Q value is the ratio of the interference, the power of the interference. Okay, this is also the same if we are using K equal to 19. K equal to 19, then the value of Q will be much larger compared to the previous example. Now, besides the frequency reuse is usually used by the normal cellular. I mean that it's using the frequency concept, right? However, if we are talking about CDMA, we know that during the last 3 weeks lecture, we have already learned about the CDMA, right? CDMA is the multiple access that utilize the pseudo-random codes. It utilizes the pseudo-random codes, right? Pseudo-random codes to distinguish between each user, which means that within one cell, there will be no different user that has the same pseudo-random codes, since it will interfering between each other. So it means that in order for us to use the same pseudo-random codes, we could still use this frequency reuse concept. So actually, in CDMA method, the clustering concept could be used in order to avoid the aliasing caused by the same cell that is using the same pseudo-random code. So which means that in CDMA, there will be no cell that has the same pseudo-random codes adjacent to each other. Now, this is the concept of the CDMA by using the clustering method. And the last one is we are going to learn about the capacity of the network of the cellular. So if we are talking about the capacity will be divided, the capacity will be equal to the bandwidth allocated divided by the bandwidth of the RF channel. Usually the allocated bandwidth is defined by the regulation. So the allocated bandwidth is defined by the regulation. However, the bandwidth allocated is defined by regulator, For example, if we're talking about regulator in Indonesia is Kominfo, it depends how large the bandwidth that is. Usually we are using tender, for example, that is tender to one particular operator. And the bandwidth of the channel RF is usually different based on its technology. For example, if we are talking about GSM, the bandwidth of the GSM for each user is 200 kilohertz, right? And if we are talking about wideband CDMA, WCDMA, WCDMA, I think it's around 5 megahertz. It's a channel. So it depends on the generation. Which generation you use which bandwidth? Each generation usually use different bandwidth each. And the total of the N is equal to the number of the capacity. Usually it's number of user or the capacity will be equal to the bandwidth allocated divided by the bandwidth of the technology. While the bandwidth allocated will be equal to times the number of channel divided by the channel RF, number of channel per one channel RF divided by the value of K or the value of the cluster. From this equation, we could see that the number of the frequency carrier within one cell could be made more than one within allocated bandwidth. So let's say this one is the allocated bandwidth. For example, for telecom cell is 30 megahertz, for example. Now, within this allocated bandwidth, we could put multiple channel RF, right? For example, if we are talking about GSM, for example, GSM. Each of this allocated bandwidth will be consist of 200 kilohertz. This one is 200, this one is 200. So how many subchannel that could be contained within 330 megahertz? So the number of the subchannel will be equal to 30 megahertz divided by the 200 kilohertz, right? 30 megahertz is equal to 30,000 kilohertz. So it will be equal to around 150, starting from 1 up until 150 carrier, right? However, if we are talking about WCDMA, so we have to divide 30 megahertz divided by the 5 megahertz. So there will be around, I think, 6 subcarrier, if I'm not wrong, because 30 divided by 5 is 6, right? Okay. And this one is the Erlang capacity calculation. Erlang capacity calculation, we could see that the more number of the channel, we could have the larger number of the traffic, right? Which means that the more channel that we have, we could have more traffic within our network. However, if we are using the same channel and we add the value of the traffic, there will be causing what we call as blocking. So there will be a communication blocking if we improve the value of the traffic load without improving the channel capacity. So the value in the middle is the traffic load, which means that using Erlang capacity calculation, we could say that higher channel will create higher traffic load. Right? However, if traffic load is increased without increasing number of channel, oh, it's not, then it will cause blocking. Let's write that. Okay, let's say blocking. Okay, so if we improve the traffic load without improving the number of channel, then it will improve the value of blocking from 1% up until 5%, depending on the traffic load. I hope you already know what it means that of the traffic loads of 0.01 Erlang, right? Since if we are using voice communication, 1 Erlang is equal to a full occupied channel of equal to 60 minutes. That's 1 Erlang value. Okay. So if we are talking using a phone for up to 30 minutes, so it's equal to half Erlang. Okay. Let's do an example. Calculate and compare this capacity between 3 technology. The first one is the AMPS technology, and also GSM, and also CDMA ES95. Oh, this is the old generation. This is below 3rd generation technology, or 2nd generation is actually, it's between a 2nd generation technology. If the bandwidth allocated is equal to 10 megahertz. Okay, so we know the bandwidth allocated equal to 10 megahertz, right? Now, using this equation, N equal to bandwidth allocated divided by bandwidth RF channel, N equal to bandwidth allocated divided by bandwidth RF channel times how do we call it? Number of channel per RF. Let's say n, little n, yeah. N divided by K. Well, this is quite simple. The bandwidth allocated is 10 megahertz, right? If you're talking 10 megahertz, then it will be equal to 10,000 kilohertz, all right? So it will be equal to 10,000 kilohertz divided by bandwidth RF of the AMPS is 30 kilohertz times. Now, since 1 RF channel only have 1 channel, so the value of N will be equal to 1. So it will be equal to 1 divided by 7, since the value of K is 7. So it will be equal to, wait, let's calculate it first. 10,000 divided by 30 divided by 7. Oh, 47.6. 47.6 user. So the number of user is only 47.6. Okay. That's if we are using AMPS technology. Now, how about if we are using GSM technology? So we could calculate the same using the same formula. bandwidth allocated divided by the bandwidth RF times N divided by K. Nah, the bandwidth allocated will be the same. It's 10,000 divided by 200, right? Bandwidth RF is 200 kilohertz. However, we know that using GSM technology, GSM is using TDMA, right? One TDMA GSM could be occupied by 8 number of users, which means that the value of n little n will be equal to 8. So within 200 kilohertz bandwidth RF, it could be occupied by 8 conversation channel, which means that the value of n will be equal to 8. So it will be equal to 8 divided by 4. All right. Let's calculate this value first. 200. I think it's easy. This one is 50. 50 divided 2, then it will be equal to 100 user. I hope it's right. Let's try using calculator because I'm not sure. Because if we are calculating while teaching, sometimes I'll feel nervous and do the math wrong. Okay, it's right, 100 of user. So we could see that using this GSM technology, we could improve the value of a user from 47 up until 100, right? So let's say if we are using the CDMA technology. If we are using the CDMA technology, using the same formula, we could found the calculation. Bandwidth allocated divided by bandwidth RF times N per K, right? The bandwidth allocated will be equal to, is still the same, 10. Since it's using megahertz, so just put it 10 over here, divided 1.25, right? Also, or you could put it like this, it's the same. 10,000 divided by 1250. It's still the same, right? However, it's in kilohertz, but the value will be the same. And since within one RF bandwidth, it could be occupied by 20 channel, so the value of N will be equal to 20. Little n, not the big N. Divided by 1. So the value will be equal to, it will be around 160 user. It's obviously easy because this 10,000 divided by 125 is 8. 8 times 20 is 160. I think let's to make sure the answer, let's use the calculator. Divided by 1250. Okay, that's the good answer, 160. So we could see that the improvement of the technology, by using different technology and different value of K, we could obtain different value of, different number of capacity, right? Now, by using the same method, you could also calculate the other operator. For example, in Indonesian operator, how many of the number of users that could be contained within one base station? Usually like that. How is the method of the bagaimana pembagian spektrum frekuensi seluler Indonesia? Nah, the process of the dividing the spectrum in frequency cellular in Indonesia is regulated by Kominfo, obviously. You could see the usually it's used by the process of tender, but I don't know very much the detail about it. Okay, I think that's it for today. That's it for today, I think. And as I have told you earlier, this is going to be the homework for this week lecture. For this week lecture, you could write down your answer. Please don't forget to write down your answer. It's not typed using Word, but you have to write down your answer, take a photo of it, and upload it to the LMS. Submit it on LMS, and the due is Thursday, 20 October 2021, obviously, at 23:59. The question is only one question. This is the question. Hexagonal shaped cellular system with R equal to 1 and the distance between cell with the same frequency D equal to 6. So you could calculate the value of D per R, right? D per R equal to root of 3 times K. Using the value of D per R, you could obtain the value of K, obviously. Calculate the reuse factor, K or the reuse factor N. Reuse factor equal to K, it's the same. Actually, it's not M, let's say it's K. And the number of cells allocated within one cluster. It's the same question. If the total of channel within the system are 1,200, calculate the number of channel allocated for each cell. If the total of channel within the system are 1,000, obviously you could just divide it, right? So the number of channel will be equal to 1,000 divided by K. Okay, just write down your answer, and the due is on the day after tomorrow, on Thursday. Okay, Thursday 23:59. Okay, I think that's it for today. Don't forget to do your homework. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.